All right, in this video we're going to talk about the future tense, the conditional tense, and then the differences between the prepositions por and para. The future and conditional tense are a bit related, so learning them back to back makes a lot of sense, and you'll see why in just a second. The future tense, remember, is when you want to talk about something that's obviously going to happen. We know how to do this by using ir a infinitive. For example, I am going to bring a blanket, voy a llevar una manta, where voy a means I am going to, and then you don't have to conjugate. That's one way to speak in the future, to say voy a and then infinitive, ir a infinitive. To say what someone will or will not do, you use the future tense. I will bring a blanket, slightly different than I am going to bring a blanket, not too much in meaning, is going to have a different tense to it. Yo llevaré una manta means I will bring a blanket. Spanish verbs can be conjugated in the future tense, like llevar, by adding endings directly to the infinitive to form the future tense of regular verbs. This means you don't have to take off the ending, the AR ending, before you add the following endings. For example, if we were going to look at the verbs jugar, proteger, and traducir, we just need to add one of the following endings to the ends of those verbs, and they are now in the future. As, a, hemos, es, and en. Forgive me. So if we wanted to add all those endings to jugar, we'd say jugaré, jugarás, jugará, jugaremos, jugaréis, and jugarán. I will play, you will play, he or she will play, we will play, jugaremos, jugaréis, jugarán, so on and so forth. I will protect, protegeré, protegerás, protegerá, protegeremos, protegeréis, y protegerán, and so on and so forth. Some examples. Él traducirá el informe para mañana. He will translate the report for tomorrow. Protegeremos a nuestros niños. We will protect our kids. So it's pretty simple. You don't have to change anything. You just have to add on endings. Of course, there are a few irregulars. Instead of, for the following verbs, adding the endings directly to the infinitive, you actually have to change the stem. So instead of saying poner, you actually have to do pondre, P-O-N-D-R. So for example, pondré, pondrás, pondrá. I will put, you will put, he, she will put. Poder becomes podr, so podré, podrás, podrá. I will be able to, you will be able to, he or she will be able to. Salir, saldré, saldrás, saldrá. I will leave, you will leave, he or she will leave. Tendré, tendrás, tendrá. I will have, you will have, he, she will have. Sabré, sabrás, sabrá. I will know, you will know, he or she will know. And then a verb that we don't use too much, valer, actually would change. You probably won't see too many examples of it, but it means to value. So valdrá means it will be worth. And then the final 6, there's 12 in total. Venir, to come. So vendré, I will come. Vendrás, you will come. Vendrá, he or she will come. Caber means to fit, another verb we don't see too much. Cabré, I will fit, as in like inside of a car or anything like that. So no cabré dentro de este coche, I will not fit inside this car. Another verb we don't use too much, caber, as well as haber. If you learn the perfect tenses in Spanish class, this verb will make sense, but it would be habré, habrás, habrá, but hardly would ever use that verb. Querer slightly changes, queré, querrás, querrá. I will want, you will want, he or she will want. Decir and hacer change a bit more drastically. You notice the other ones have D's or B's. Decir becomes diré, dirás, dirá. I will say, I will, you will say, he or she will say. And then I will do, haré, you will do, harás, he or she will do, hará. So, yo haré la tarea, I will do the homework. You can also use the future tense in a certain context to make a guess about something or to wonder. For example, if you were going to ask the question, I wonder what Carlos is doing today, you would actually say, what will Carlos do today? ¿Qué hará Carlos hoy? Jugará al tenis con Emilio. He's probably playing tennis with Emilio, or he will play tennis with Emilio. That it actually comes off as a guess. Another very, very common example of this is when you'd ask, who is at your door? If somebody knocks on your door, what a lot of people say is not who is it, but who will it be? ¿Quién será? Or será. ¿Quién será? Who will it be? Where you attach a with an accent onto the end of the verb ser. So some practice. I will have, tendré. We will play, jugaremos. You all will listen, escucharán. You will want, querrás. You, sir or ma'am, will leave, saldrá. They will talk, hablarán. You all, if we were in Spain, will say, diráis. I will be able to, podré. You will serve, servirás. We will leave, saldremos. He will practice, practicará. And I will give, dar is a regular verb, yo daré. So if we were going to look at use it in sentences and to translate, some using the future tense, they will reuse. Reutilizar is our verb, so we attach the an ending. Reutilizarán el papel en el basurero. They will reuse the paper in the garbage bin. The bears will go extinct. It's a reflexive verb, so you also have to pay attention to that. Los osos se extinguirán si no hacemos nada, if we don't do anything. Pollution, la contaminación, will harm is dañar, so dañará la capa de ozono. Pollution will harm the ozone layer. You will destroy the planet. Destruir becomes destruirás el planeta. I will wait for you. Esperar. Te esperaré. Next on the list is the conditional tense. It's very similar to the future tense, and then it conjugates the same way. What it means in English is you form the conditional by placing the word would behind before the main verb. In Spanish, the conditional is one word. So an example in a sentence would say, I would bring a blanket, like hypothetically. Like I would bring a blanket if I were you. In Spanish, you can see there is no word would that you would need to do. You just need to conjugate llevar, which means to bring, in a special way. Yo llevaría una manta. I would bring a blanket. So to say what somebody would or would not do, we use the conditional tense. All verbs, whether they end in a, or e, or I, have the same endings in the conditional. And we'll see those in a second. And just like the future tense, you attach them to the infinitive of those regular verbs. So for those infinitives, like llevar, to bring, resolver, to resolve, discutir, to discuss, you just need to add one of these following endings. And you can see they are actually the exact same endings as an imperfect er or ir verb, except instead of taking off the last two letters, like resolvía, you actually attach it to the infinitive. So llevaría, llevarías, I would bring, you would bring, llevaríamos, we would bring. Angélica discutiría la situación y resolvería el problema con nuestra ayuda. Angélica would discuss the situation and she would resolve the problem with our help. Notice how there's accents on all of the forms, just like the imperfect endings. The same verbs that have irregular stems in the future occur in the conditional, so poner, poder, salir, tener, saber, valer, will all shorten down to the same stem as the future tense. So if you wanted to say, I will be able to, podré, I would be able to, podría. I will have, tendré, I would have, tendría, and so on and so forth. More stems, venir, caber, haber, querer, decir, and hacer. We've talked about these when we talked about the future tense, and you've probably heard a little bit about them in class. So just remember that these stems are irregular. So some more examples. Yo pondría el escáner aquí, así lo tendríamos al lado de la computadora. I would put the scanner here, That way, we would have it next to the computer. Pondría and tendríamos. So some examples. I would do, haría. We would live, viviríamos. You all would protect, protegerían. You would know, sabrías, irregular. You would, formal, put, pondría. They would say, dirían. You all, if we were in Spain, would come, vendríais. I would give, daría. You would leave, saldrías. We would serve, serviríamos. He would be able to, podría. And finally, I would buy, compraría. So again, just attaching those endings onto the infinitive or the irregular step. So if we looked at some full-on sentences, I would never do that. Nunca haría eso. Never, I would do that. Nunca haría eso. What would you like to eat? ¿Qué te gustaría comer? Where here, you can see it's just like a gustar, like ¿qué te gusta? But instead of you conjugating the present tense, you just do the conditional. ¿Qué te gustaría comer? And that's where you hear the expression me gustaría, I would like. The drought would threaten the environment. La sequía amenazaría el medio ambiente. Amenazar, to threaten. Amenazaría, would threaten. How would you know? ¿Cómo sabrías? Research would support innovation. La investigación apoyaría la innovación. Hopefully that helps with conditional. We're going to move on to por versus para now if you're watching this part of the video. The difference between por and para in Spanish is a bit more complicated than it is in English, because in English the preposition for can indicate exchange, like we paid for our food, or it means destination, I'm leaving for school, among other definitions or other uses. But Spanish has two prepositions that express those ideas, por and para. So in English, when we have the word for, in Spanish, we have por or para, and it's kind of like choosing between ser and estar or saber and conocer, where it has some rules that you can follow. The uses for por are as follows. We use por to express passing through, like navigating through. So, el tren pasa por Panama. The train passes through Panama. We can also use it for general location, like, is there a trash can around here? Hay un basurero por aquí. How long something lasts. Hablamos por 10 minutos. We talked for 10 minutes. It's the cause of something. This is where we get our por qué, but just the word por by itself functions in the same way. No tenemos agua por la sequía. We do not have water because of the drought. For exchanges, we use por. Pagué $15 por la camisa. I paid $15 for or in exchange for the shirt. Doing something in place of someone else, like, can you work for me instead of me? Puedes trabajar por mí. Estoy enfermo. Can you work for me or in place of me? I'm sick. It's the means of doing something, meaning hablamos por teléfono, like we speak by means of a phone or through a phone. So how something is accomplished. So those are the reasons for por. We'll see a lot of examples in the near future. Para, on the other hand, has different reasons. Para is used for whom something is done, like the ultimate purpose for whom something is done. So, damos una fiesta para mi madre. We are throwing a party for my mom. Destinations. Salgo para Chicago mañana. I'm leaving for Chicago mañana. Recipients of items, este regalo es para mi abuela. So that's kind of like, instead of number one, for whom something is done, it's to whom something is done. Like whoever is receiving something, you use para. Like in 1, 2, and 3, first my mom is receiving a party. Chicago is receiving me, if you want to think of it that way, where my purpose is Chicago. The purpose of throwing a party is for my mom, and the purpose of the gift is for my grandmother. So they're all kind of similarly related here. And of course, here we have the purpose of an action, which means in order to. So we read the newspaper in order to inform ourselves or to keep informed. So you're going to see para is more for purpose, the why you are doing something, not the means or the how you are doing something, like with por. Opinions, para mí, or for me, innovation is important. Para mí, la innovación es importante. Comparisons. If you wanted to say Paco is tall for only being 2 years old, Paco es alto para tener 2 años. And deadlines. Think the purpose is Thursday. The homework is for Thursday. La tarea es para el jueves. So looking at some of the examples, I paid $5 for the book. Pagué $5 por el libro because it's an exchange, $5 for a book. He or she traveled for 1 year, por, because it's a duration of time. Tráeme un vaso para agua. Bring me a glass for water, or the purpose of an action. Por favor. And that's just an expression that we know from a very long time, and that's how you say please. Vino para el periódico. He or she came for the newspaper. So just like bring me a glass for water, he came for the newspaper. So his purpose of doing something, his ultimate goal is for water or for a newspaper. In 3 or 4, no estudié ayer por estar enfermo. I didn't study yesterday because I was sick. That's the reason you didn't do something, the por, the because part of the por reasoning. Andaba por la calle. He or she or I used to walk or would walk through the streets. That's the passing through. Fui al teatro por la noche. That's a period of time or during the night. Llegarán, they will arrive. Para el 20 de julio, they will arrive for the 20th of July. That is a deadline. Hay cartas para mí. Are there letters for me? That's the recipient of an object. Hay muchas flores por aquí, which is a general location. There are a lot of flowers around here. More practice. Esta botella es para leche. This bottle is for milk. It's its purpose of the bottle. Nosotros estudiamos para obtener buenas notas. We study in order to. Our purpose is to get good grades. ¿Cuánto pagaste por el diccionario? Is an exchange of money for a dictionary. So anytime you see exchange of money, it's going to be por. Él entró por la puerta. He entered through or by means of the door. That's kind of like we talked by means of a phone or through a phone. Estuvo en mi casa. He or she was in my house por 2 meses, for 2 months. That is a duration of time. Here's a big paragraph where you can see it a little bit more in context. Mi clase de ecología hará un viaje, will take a trip, por varias regiones de Costa Rica, will take a trip throughout various regions of Costa Rica. Saldremos para San Jose, that's a destination. We will leave for San Jose el viernes y nos quedaremos, and we will stay por 2 semanas, for 2 weeks. That's a duration of time. Visitaremos 6 parques nacionales y reservas ecológicas para ser un país pequeño, which means even though it is a small country, Costa Rica tiene muchísima variedad natural y el gobierno se preocupa mucho, and the government is worried a lot about el medio ambiente. So that's the reason, that's the because. They are worried because of the environment. Pasaremos, we will pass through or go through. So that's going to be por los parques a pie, on foot. in order to see more, para ver más. So the purpose of doing so is to see more. Llevaré una cámara digital para sacar fotos. I will bring a digital camera in order to take photos. So again, that's our purpose, so para. Después del viaje, te las mandaré. After the trip, I will send them to you by means of, por correo electrónico, by means of email or through email. Tendré que pagar mucho por el viaje, pay a lot for the trip, that's an exchange, pero será inolvidable. It will be unforgettable. Bueno, Julia, te escribiré más la semana que viene. I will write you more next week. Hopefully that helps you a little bit out with por and para. Again, this is one of those things where you need to see a lot of examples and a lot of practice. So if you need extra help, just come see me. Thanks for watching.